Hey, Econ class, I just thought I'd put together a real short little video so that you'd had a chance for at least a consultation and it won't take too long on the last few slides that we have put together for this particular unit. So let's get with it. Hopefully you had a great Labor Day weekend, a little longer for everybody. I got a lot of work done. That doesn't sound like a lot, the thing to do on Labor Day, but again, we celebrate the fact that we have a chance to work, and so hopefully you're productive too, or you got a little downtime and get caught up as well. We were on this slide here, microeconomics, and that's the major field of study for this particular course, and that's what we're going to be diving right into for the next 14 weeks, I guess. 13 without finals, I guess. Microeconomics, it just deals with the individual producers and the consumers when we talk about economics. So we're talking about you, the consumer, and maybe you when you get out of school and you start your own business, and you're the firm and the inputs and things like that go into it. So that's what we're talking about as far as microeconomics. It's a different field of study, but there's interactions between that and macroeconomics, which deal with more on the national scene and the world scene internationally, and we talk about those kinds of things. So we talk about big things like unemployment rate, interest rates, and effect on the economy, and all that kind of stuff when we GNP when we talk about macroeconomics. So here we go, microeconomics of production. That's going to be our field of study for the next, I don't know, 3 or 4 units. The whole deal with this is that, again, this is kind of we're going to re-emphasize the fact that these questions have to be answered within an economy. And it's deeply involved with the how it's produced and what is produced and how much is produced and when will it be produced. And as we've said before, typically the ultimate group of people that answers that is the consumer. So, and we've given lots of examples on that. How it's going to be produced. Hey, listen, we may go to a totally GMO free food production process because consumers demand that. We may have a niche market here and there where grass-fed beef is demanded by certain consumer groups, and so on. You can see there's endless possibilities to how it's produced, or particularly food is a really good example in all this. What's produced? Well, I mean, if you're going to consume it, some things will not be consumed as much as others. So the consumer ultimately is going to answer that. How much of it? It could depend on price, right? We've talked about that as far as the consumer, and you'll answer that. And when it's produced. Certain specialty items are only demanded at certain times of the year, so producers will try to meet that particular demand element when we talk about when. Okay, these are the things that we talked about at the very beginning. Microeconomics of consumption. The consumer is faced with economic decisions of what to purchase given the limited resources. And we're mainly talking about resources for the consumer being money and time. Okay, we go to a fast food market because we want to get dinner and we want to get it now and we want to eat and get on to our next activity. So time is an element as well as the amount that we have to pay for those particular resources. So scarcity weighs into the decision. Money and time are scarce in their inherently. So and those are the inputs. Scarcity also weighs in on the producer side. The raw goods that it takes in order to collectively put together something so that we have an end output. Those things are scarce on the firm side of things as well. So that's going to determine some of the questions that we have. So there is some limited input from producers on that. Choice. without choice, we already have talked about that choice. If there's no choices out there, if it's if a centrally authority is actually determining price and how much will be put out there in the marketplace, then there's really no economy to study. But if there is a free market, or if there's the element of at least where there's an assembly to those free markets, then consumers in the end have a choice, and that will determine a whole lot. Self-interest is also a part of this whole thing. I'd like you to also be kind of versed, as we talked on one of our discussions in class, is the fact that the possibility, if we take care of others and take care of their self-interest, an example that was given in class was about the employer-employee relationship. If you take care of your employees' self-interest, are you not in fact taking care of your own self-interest in a lot of cases? It can go south on that sort of thing as well, but that would be where you're being taken care of or taken advantage of as an employer. But those things are definitely very much a part of this whole deal. Microeconomics. Now, just a couple of definitions here and a little bit of discussions are the fact that in free markets, we study the market, and we're going to talk about supply and demand in the next unit in price determination. And markets are the primary price discovery mechanism found in the framework of most countries economically. In all countries, in some regards. So we talked about black markets. I mean, that's the freest market there is. It could be a really chaotic market. It can have very high prices associated with it, and those kinds of things, but it definitely is a free market when you study it. Government enters into that sort of thing and regulates certain markets, and so that it does kind of throw a little bit of an angle through, not just a little, but a lot in some cases, depending on the amount of suppression and regulation that's seen in the marketplace. But markets are the primary source of price discovery. It is established whenever potential buyers and potential sellers come together. They establish the price and exchange goods and services. Whether you know it or not, you make an economic decision, a market decision when you go to the grocery store and you look at something, a product on the shelf, and you say, that costs too much, so I'm going to substitute it with another product because my resources, time and money, are scarce, and I only have a limited amount of them. Okay? So, and the last thing that we need to talk about is there is a marketplace. Okay, that's usually, and we can think of it typically as a physical location. Okay, we have a sale barn where cattle are auctioned off. That would be the marketplace. If we combine all the marketplaces together to get a local or regional price or a national price for something, that would be the market. Okay, and we would have different substrates of markets within the whole, and bringing all these marketplaces together, that determining the actual markets. And some of our national markets, and they're somewhat international too, would be the futures exchanges, where a lot of agricultural commodities are exchanged and prices determined in the future for those kinds of commodities. It's not only ag commodities, but it's also like gold and silver. Bonds are traded on the futures and things like that. So there's those kinds, and what those are is they're reading the information given from the individual marketplaces and combining it and putting it, and prices determined in that marketplace or from those marketplaces as an aggregate. So anyway, didn't want to make this too long, and I wanted to make sure that you had a little, at least had a chance to rub elbows and get some of this information. So good luck on the test on Wednesday. If you have any questions on this or any of the prior materials, be sure and get a hold of me. I'm going to be in my office on Tuesday. You can come up to the Warner Ag Pavilion and we'll visit. Okay? All right. Well, thank you for viewing this video, and hopefully it wasn't too painful for you.